Good day everyone, we are the group 7 and today we are going to present the experiment number 3, which is determination of time setting of hydraulic cement. In this experiment, there will be a periodic penetration test performed on the paste by allowing a 1 mm Vicat needle to settle into the paste. There are two main values to be collected in order to calculate the time setting of cement, which is the initial time and final time of setting. This test is necessary for determining the time needed for the concrete process, such as transportation, placing, and compaction of concrete. So for today's experiment, we will be using 400 grams of cement, water, the Vicat apparatus, the glass gravit, the flat trowel, the plain absorptive plate, next is the conical ring, and mixing bowl. The objective for this experiment is to determine the time setting of the hydraulic cement by Vicat needle apparatus.
Now we are gonna weigh 400 grams of cement. So since the mixing bowl is 212, then plus 400, we're gonna measure 612. So now we're gonna start mixing the cement. We will add 120 ml of water to the cement. So this is 30% of the total weight of the cement. And before mixing, we should start the timer.
After preparing the cement paste, shape it into a ball with gloved hands and toss from one hand to another.
So now that the cement mixture is ready, we are now going to put this into this conical ring.
After filling the conical ring to the top, let the specimen sit for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, take the first penetration. Make sure that the needle is just above the specimen.
So after 30 minutes of settling, and we will perform the first penetration.
Make sure to record your data. Take the penetration every 15 minutes thereafter until the needle does not mark the specimen surface with a complete circular impression. Record the results of all penetration tests and by interpolation determine the initial and final time setting. The elapsed time between the initial contact of cement and water and the penetration of 25 mm is the Vicat initial time of setting, while the Vicat final time of setting endpoint is to be the first penetration measure that does not mark the specimen surface.
So for this experiment, again, we use the reference standard AASHTO T131-06, or also known as the standard method of test for time of setting of hydraulic cement by Vicat needle. Now, we will be proceeding to results and discussion of this experiment. First is the table or the data sheet that we have presented. First is table 1, which is entitled Material Specifications. So here we have two datas. First is the mass of cement in grams, which is equal to 400 grams. And lastly would be the volume of water, which is equal to 120 ml. So in order to get the volume of the water, we had to multiply 30% to the mass of cement, and that would be equal to the 120 ml or the volume of the water. Next data sheet would be the table 2, or also known as the initial and final time setting determination. So here we have the description, time interval in minutes, time elapsed in minutes, and penetration in mm. Firstly, the addition of water in cement, of course, there is still no time interval for that, also the time elapsed and penetration. Next would be the mixing and filling of mold. The time interval for this is 5 minutes. Time elapsed also is 5 minutes. And for the presentation, we have no data since it is still filling the mold. Next, we have the first reading up to the 9th reading. As you have observed, after filling the mold, we still gave time for the mold to set. So the time interval for this is 30 minutes already. Total time elapsed in minutes is 35 minutes. And the first penetration for this one is 39 mm. For the second reading up to the 9th reading, it can be seen that the time interval is constant, which is 15 minutes, and this is in accordance to the reference standard that we have followed. Next, we have the time elapsed, which is 50, 65, 80, so on and so forth. And also the penetration, 35, 31, 28 mm, so on and so forth. So we started the experiment at 9:05 a.m. Time at taking the initial setting time reading is at 10:50 a.m. and time at taking the final setting reading is at 11:50 a.m. So the initial setting time in minutes that we have gathered is 95 minutes. And for the final setting time, we have the 155 minutes. So in order to get the initial and final setting time, we have here the formula. So time of penetration greater or equal to 25 mm minus contact time of cement and water. So for the contact time, we have 0 minutes. But as you can see, for the time penetration greater or equal to 25 mm, we have 95 minutes because as you can see in the table, in the time elapsed of 95 minutes, we have the penetration of 25 mm. For the final setting time of 0 penetration minus contact time of cement and water, so it is also 0 for the contact time, and for the 155 minutes, we got it in the last reading. Next would be the discussion of the graph for this experiment. So after all the 9 readings, we have just followed and plotted each data or reading. For the x-axis, we have the time in minutes, and for the y-axis, we have the penetration depth in mm. So in conclusion, we really have determined the initial and final setting time for this experiment. And to make sure that we have followed AASHTO T131-06 standards, here is the required initial setting time, which is not less than 45 minutes, and ours is 95 minutes, which just falls within the range of the initial setting time. Required final setting time for the AASHTO is not greater than 375 minutes, and ours is 155 minutes, which also falls in the same range for this experiment. So hydraulic cement is a product that has the ability to react with water under ambient conditions to form a hardened and water-resistant product. With this, it is important to conduct this test method to provide a means of determining compliance with a specification limit for Vicat time setting or its time for setting, which is why this experiment is very much important. And that is all. Thank you and have a good day.